Well, thanks to you both for being here. Kind of just want to get right into it. If you guys just want to start, for anybody listening, today we are talking about what is really going on in Iran. I have a lot of questions. Reza, you all, our audience is familiar with Reza. It's an issue that is very near and dear to him, which we'll get into. Why it is, why that matters. But I don't know what's happening. I feel like I see some things on the mainstream that I can't believe. I don't know what's really going on. So I want to use this as a opportunity to share this information and really get to the truth of the matter, not someone's agenda or corporate media. So with that being said, you know, I believe in freedom and human rights and freedom of expression and liberty and democracy and human rights. And so that's another reason why I think it's important to have you guys on and have this conversation today.
I woke up today and I was looking forward to this podcast, and then all of a sudden, I saw another person, Mohsen Shakari, that got hung, and literally, um, from the pit of my stomach, you know, I just felt so sad, so sad. 23 years old, you know, when is it going to stop? When really, 43 years. I mean, 43 years of oppression, 43 years of people being harassed, prosecuted unfairly, 43 years of limited news coming into the country, information. Um, it's really just, I think all Iranians are getting to a boiling point now where when's enough, like enough is enough, right? And we've done everything we could, and even you providing this platform for us to talk, I think it's super important, because we need to bring more awareness, because what we're seeing is that the international community um, is not actually doing is not actually helping, right? There are things they could have done to this point that haven't been done. So that I just wanted to get that out of the way. Um, but yeah, we can get into it and really talk about it. Pilar, did you want to say some stuff?
I mean, I agree. I think that one of the biggest and most important things that we need to talk about is the global public awareness and attention that is needed in order to prevent things like what happened this morning uh, with Mohsen Shakari. And, we can get into the details now, but, I just want to say, like, thank you for having me here and for giving us this platform, because this is exactly the type of thing that we need to do. We need to continue to talk about it. This isn't going to be resolved in a couple of days. This is a marathon. And so we need to continue to keep talking about it, to keep bringing awareness, and to highlight the atrocities so that people don't forget, and so that we can hopefully eventually actually pressure the global governments to do something, to not just say words, but actually take action.
And I know we wanted to have another person on today, but they were fearful of speaking out publicly at some of the ramifications on the ground in Iran. So that being said, and if anything happens today, anything needs to be said and we need to scrap or take away, I understand that completely. So yeah, Reza, do you want to kick us off with
Sure,
some of the
sure.
background here? What is really going on?
Just to follow up what you said, I mean, we had someone who I thought would be great. She's in Iran. She's an English teacher in Iran, and she's on the ground floor there. But again, like what you're saying, the fearful to come on for the ramifications of just coming on a podcast. And so this is the climate that we're talking about here, where you can't express yourself, right? You can't talk bad about the government. You can't do this and you can't do that. And living in that state of mind, I mean, that's in my opinion, it's not even living. And so these there's human right violations, right? And so it is very near and dear to me. I was born in Tehran. I left. I consider myself very fortunate and blessed. And to be honest, I have survivor's guilt about being able to leave and coming to America. And my parents, are basically growing up here in California. But I go to Iran regularly. I have a lot of family there on both sides, with my mom and my dad's family. And so I spend a lot of times, 3 to 4 weeks there in Iran. I've been going pretty much every 3 to 4 years since I was about 7 or 8 years old. So there's been some gaps that I haven't gone. I have noticed that when I have gone there, things have become slowly more westernized, but there's still a lot of oppression that happens. Oh, Reza, are you going out? Don't wear this. Oh, you can't wear that. And what's really happening is it's kind of hard to say exactly, because if you have never been there, as Luke, you haven't. But I want to just say that the complete control of freedom of expression, right? The complete control of what you can wear. For example, right now, what Delara is wearing would be completely unacceptable outside. And this limiting of expression and honestly living should never be tolerated. But it's been going on for 43 years. My cousins, some of my cousins, I'm 35. Some of my cousins are about in their 40s. Some of them, a couple of them are younger, but I'm actually probably the third youngest cousin. So a lot of them are about 35 plus, all the way to about 45. So these cousins have lived in the 43 years, the whole time the regime has been around, have been living in a constant state of oppression and lack of freedom and lack of human rights. I mean, this is a violation of human rights. So that's kind of the climate. Now I haven't even got into the socioeconomic things, right? Where inflation is just a normal thing. We're not really used to. Inflation has just hit United States, and people are mad about 8% inflation. Inflation in Iran is like 200%, 300%, 400% inflation. So there is just so much stuff going on. I don't even really know where to start, but it is what I would say completely oppressed. These people are oppressed, and I'll throw it out to you, Laura, to say your experience.
Yeah, sure. So I also grew up in Iran. I lived there. I spent almost the first 9 years of my life there, from when I was 1 until 10. And yeah, I was also very lucky that I was able to leave with my family, but with my nuclear family. But it's the same story. All Iranians, we all have this story that, we have still fat family in Iran. We have family scattered everywhere. And one of the things that the Islamic Republic took away from us by their presence and by their oppression is that we didn't get the chance to grew up with our families, to be like all together in one place. We didn't get the chance to really, truly be and stay fully in touch with our culture, because we had to leave, because we had to get integrated into a whole new country, a whole new language. Like you said, Reza, it's hard to know where to start, but something that I'll say about my own family is that, my grandparents were alive when the revolution happened. My mom was in 3rd grade when the revolution happened. She lived through that mayhem. And then a 10-year Iran-Iraq war, or was it 7 years? I forgot exactly, but almost
10 years.
A decade-long war that the Islamic Republic kind of maintained. It could have ended sooner, but they maintained it in order to have an external enemy so that Iranians don't even have a chance to process that the Islamic Republic itself is the enemy, because there was this external enemy that they had to hide from. There's a lot of trauma there.
And Luke, you might be asking, well, how did the Islamic Republic even come to be, right? Like, what happened before? And there was basically a king, a Shah Pahlavi, and he had basically in my grandmother's house, if you go in the cabinets, sometimes they put newspapers right in the cabinets, so they put cups and stuff like that. In the cabinets, I pulled out some of these newspapers, and what did I find? It was advertisements for Americans to come to Iran. This is pre-1979. It was advertisements for it was a travel destination for Americans to come to Iran, right? And Pahlavi, basically, he was ousted. They were very buddy with America. A lot of the oil, right? The gross national product is oil, and a lot of that was given to America. At some point, Iranians said, you know what? Let's not give the oil for so cheap. And so once Pahlavi basically told America, hey, we're not going to give you the oil for this price. I personally believe that, and you could look it up, it's there, that it was a thing between America and England that actually brought in Khomeini. And after Khomeini came in, Ayatollah Khomeini, everything just changed. The whole thing just changed. Iran completely changed. And by 1983, I think it was, hijab became mandatory. So as Delara is saying, like, she's absolutely correct. I mean, Iranians really didn't have time to process what was going on. It was changing so fast. Also, the Islamic Republic promised a lot of things that they never delivered. They promised free electricity, no taxes. They swayed the people into thinking completely differently than what they ended up doing. And after Khomeini came into power, with the help, and he came over from France. He was in house arrest in France. America at some point actually wanted to kill Khomeini, and they I think it was President Carter, that held off on it. And then later on, from house arrest. Can you imagine, from house arrest in France, he ends up coming to Iran and becoming the leader. And eventually, Khomeini died. And from that time, there's a supreme leader who's still alive. He's 83 years old, Ali Khamenei, who has been basically the supreme leader, and whatever his word is the word of God, right? And this is complete fucking bullshit. There are some conspiracy theories that say that this isn't even one person. Khamenei is like multiple people. He hasn't aged. If you look at pictures of him, he hasn't even aged. So there's like possible like three. They say there's like three different Khameneis, and they keep swapping it out. This is like tactics the regime might do to keep their regime keep going, basically. But it's very where to start. It's like where to begin. that's the thing, right?
Delara, what's your immediate reaction to that?
To the conspiracy theory, or to which part?
Well, any other context before I ask some specific questions about what's going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that something that many non-Iranians might not know is that the fact that the US and England played a significant role in ousting, first of all, a democratically elected prime minister of Iran, replacing it with the Shah. And then once the Shah got too powerful in their eyes, then orchestrating a propaganda and another coup to get rid of the Shah, and catalyze the power of Khomeini coming into power, and all because of oil. And some of this has already been, I think most of it actually has been released by the CIA now. It's now available to the public, so you could look it up. That the CIA and the UK played this role. So the current state of Iran is very much in part the responsibility of the West. And right now they're still not willing to help Iranians, like truly help. They're still trying to negotiate with this terrorist organization that is a dictatorship, truly, that is trying to hide underneath sort of like democracy's clothing, very thin veil. They are a straight up dictatorship, and they have been since the beginning.
But I do want to talk about right now, this past, I don't know, year potentially, I have seen more protests. So I want to get into that and why are the protesters protesting right now? What was the catalyst for that? Why have the protests increased right now?
Yeah, I could start with speak to that. So, just about 12 weeks ago, Gina Mahsa Amini, she's a Kurdish woman, only 22 years old, was visiting Tehran with her family when the morality police, this insane set of the Islamic Republic forces, which are responsible for watching people and making sure that they're following hijab rules. That's their whole job. So they apparently decided that she wasn't dressed appropriately, and they detained her, and they beat her so severely while in detainment that she went into a coma and died 3 days later. And this news got around thanks to amazing reporters, Nilufar Hamedi and Elahe Mohammadi, who have actually been arrested since. By the way, they're detained as well. They reported that Gina died, and this got around. Everyone heard about it, and there was a huge outrage. It was basically the spark for this uprising. And there are many reasons why, like people have asked, like, why now? Why this particular detainment? Why this particular death? Because this isn't the first time someone has died under their hands. This has been ongoing. This is a continual problem. And, one of the reasons might be that Gina wasn't particularly dressed in an outrageous way. She was dressed in a way that many young Iranian women have been dressing every day. And so it really hit home for women, especially, that this could have happened to me. I could have been her. There is no predictability. There is no knowing how the Islamic Republic is gonna react at any point. You have to be walking on eggshells at all times because you just don't know. And the hijab standards, it's not like the standards are constant. Sometimes they go a little bit easier, and people like dress a little bit more risky in their eyes. And sometimes they suddenly decide to go hard and just make a bunch of arrests, punish the woman, do 70 to hundreds of lashes, literally physically hurt women for the way that they dress. So I think this is part of it. And the other part of it is just, I think it's the Gen Z population and how connected they've been to the outside world and how aware they are of what's possible, of the freedom that's possible. The other part of it is the dire economic situation in Iran and how, people don't feel like they have a future here. They don't have many of them, although they're highly educated, don't have jobs, don't see a future with the Islamic Republic, feel oppressed in many ways. Again, a lot of women, even though they're educated, they don't get the jobs because they're women. I mean, it's a complex, multifactorial problem, but ultimately, it's about the Islamic Republic being a violent terrorist organization that's been hurting people for too long. And at some point, people have reached that point that enough is enough.
Yeah, I to piggyback off that, like enough is enough, and it's been going on for so long. Why now? I think, you know, what Delara said is Masa Amini is actually every Iranian woman in Iran, you know, and what she, as she was saying, like she was dressed actually like very not risque as at all. Um, why now? I mean, one of the things is what people don't realize is the Iranian government controls all communications, radio, television, internet, right? So before the internet, information from the outside world would never come in because they would control it. And information within Iran would take a long time to leave, right? Because it would only be from people like Delara and me who were traveling, or other people who were traveling within Europe and going to Iran. So the information overall is controlled. The internet is controlled, right? With the internet, though, with Telegram, Twitter, Instagram, the regime can no longer lie to the people, right? Before 2005, whatever, they could lie, and people wouldn't really know, right? But now you can't lie to the people. The people have the information and they know that you're lying. And so they are fed up with these lies, this 43 years of bullshit. It was able to go viral. People were able to grasp it and see this and understand that, hey, this can happen to their daughter. This can happen to their niece. This can happen to their granddaughter. The socioeconomic things in Iran are really, really at a point where inflation has caused a lot of problems. People are basically at work all the time. The money they have goes to their apartment or house. There's barely any money left over. And why? Well, why is this? Well, because Iran is sanctioned, right? No one wants to. No other countries, basically, with America's sanction on Iran, products are not coming in. Products are not leaving Iran. So it's very controlled, almost in like this state of, like almost an island state, basically, right? Where nothing is coming in, nothing is going out. So economically, things are not so great. On top of that, you know, the morality police, it's at their discretion what they're feeling like. I always have this thing that I say that in Iran, the laws change on a daily basis, right? It's never one set law that just, oh, this is the law and people have to follow it. No, it changes just daily. And so you really don't know what's going to happen. I was in Iran recently. In 2019, I was there. While I was in Iran in 2019, the internet was cut for 12 days straight. No internet. Nothing coming in, nothing leaving. After 12 days, it was almost like they flipped the light switch and then the internet was back on, right? And it was just bewildering to actually be there. I was appalled. I was astonished. It for me, I was almost like, this is a violation, you know, of my right to get on the internet. But for Iranians there, it was always like, it would almost seem like, oh, this is just part of what the regime does. I was there recently again, and I was there right right before Masa Amini was unjustly killed, uh, I went to Iran, and the internet was cut every day at around 5 or 6 p.m. The internet was cut, turned off, and it wasn't turned back on until about 1 in the morning. So this happened every day. It's still going on. You can't access lots of the internet. It's blocked. You have to use VPN to get onto the internet sometimes. Instagram is huge in Iran, and part of the reason why I think a lot of stuff came out for Masa Amini, not only is she like the face of Iran, but the face of women in Iran, but I think a lot of people were able to use Instagram and Twitter to get this out. And Iranians abroad, right? Like this is our family. These are our people. We have to like bring this awareness out. We have to talk about this. I don't think I could live without doing anything. That wouldn't be who I am. And I think a lot of Iranians abroad feel the same way. And we want to help our brothers and sisters, right? We don't want to just stand here and not do anything. So it is an issue that's like very near and dear to us. And whatever we and you know, one of the other things I wanted to say is at some point, right? People say, well, say her name. Say her name, Masa Amini. And the reason why we are on the precipice of a revolution, right? And there is no leader of this revolution. And I think one reason that's actually good is because if there was one person that was the leader, what the regime would do was just execute that person, execute their family, execute that person. But there's no face of this revolution because the face is all of us, right? And the more people the regime executes, the more we're going to say their name, right? We're going to make those names out. We're going to make those names aware internationally, because if they just keep executing people and no one says anything, this is just going to continue to the regime just like kills people. But that's why it's so important when they say their name. We really have to say their name. Mohsen Shakari, right? Masa Amini. The list goes on, but we need to keep saying their name. It is like super important.
Something I want to say, by the way, is that I know that there's different definitions of what is a revolution. And so different people kind of say different things, but a lot of Iranians, even within Iran, they're calling this a revolution already. They're saying this is it. We are in a revolution. We're about to enter a revolution. There is no, this is just protest. We are in it. And there is no turning back. So I just want to clarify that.
And I have seen reports about killing protesters and sentencing them to death. And I've seen discrepancy on this as well. And this is an issue that I have not seen in my eyes 100% clarity represented in the news or the media. What are your two's take on that? I've seen, that 15,000 people were sentenced to death.
I actually wrote an article about this, and hopefully we'll get to publish it soon. But here's the thing. If you look at the history of the Islamic Republic, there are a couple of things to note. One is that they have a history of mass executing Iranians, including the 1988 massacre, where they executed political prisoners, a minimum of 5,000 political prisoners, and some estimate that number is as high as 30,000. They hanged them upon cranes in groups of 6 in 30-minute intervals, because there's so many that they were trying to execute. And then they buried them in mass graves in unknown sites. And because Iran is a closed country, we haven't been even able to verify where those sites are. So this Islamic regime, it has that history. Even in 2019, there was what became known as Bloody November, where they killed at least 1,500 people in 3 days. And so the Islamic regime is willing to do anything to maintain power. The other piece that I want to say is that human rights organizations have reported that currently, as of now, there are at least 18,000 detained protesters. And the parliament, in early November, they voted 200 and I think something like 227, the majority of the parliament voted to basically encourage the judiciary to levy the harshest punishments against these protesters, the harshest punishments meaning death, because that is their harshest punishment. And so this news got out and spread, and people started kind of talking about how these 15,000 protesters, at the time it was 15,000, are facing the very high possibility of execution. And then, it's a post went viral that said 15,000 protesters have been sentenced to death. And here's the interesting part. Suddenly, out of nowhere, all these journalists who had remained silent on all the atrocities that had been happening in Iran up to that point came out of the woodwork and started pick apart that story, saying that this is false news because the judiciary hasn't officially sentenced them. And this is where these people are lacking historical knowledge. They're lacking an understanding of the political system. They think that there is something as fair due process under the Islamic Republic. There is no fair due process. Political detainees don't even get representation. They don't even get to choose a lawyer to be present. They go through brief sham trials. Before they even go through trials, they're being tortured while detained. Before anything, they're already being beaten. They're being tortured into forced confessions. And then those forced confessions are used against them under a very quick sham trial. And then they're charged with muharaba, things like muharaba, which is the term that means basically waging war against God, and which is punishable by death. So I say to those journalists, do you want to wait until every single protester is sentenced and hanged before you speak up? Like what they did with that, by saying that, they basically stopped the global public awareness that was spreading about these detained protesters who are very much already suffering and who are very much already at risk.
Yeah, I completely, I mean, she said it so eloquently, and that's exactly what's going on. I mean, where were these journalists, right? Where were these journalists in September, right? Where were they for the last 43 years? Where were they? And why all of a sudden did they want to fact check, right? And it almost makes me think that there's other political things going on behind the scenes that I don't have any idea about. But these are sham trials. I mean, Mohsen Shakari, he was in 2 days, he was hung after his trial. He was forced into a confession. It's intimidation, right? The regime, it's very realistic that this can happen. What she was saying about the cranes and hanging people from cranes, I've seen it with my own eyes in Iran. People gather around. There's a construction crane. It goes up. The guy is hung. Everyone's out there looking. And what is that? I mean, this regime is not the way to treat humans at all. I mean, even humans that you're executing. Where is the international community? Where is the UN, right? And it's almost like this is happening right before our eyes. This is ethnic cleansing. This is genocide, right? And where are the journalists in reporting this? I mean, so for them to come and pick apart this thing, and while not knowing the history and not knowing the power of the regime and how the regime operates, the checks and balances. I mean, the checks and balances, there's none. And the way that everything is set up is set up so that whatever the supreme leader says, everyone follows. Everyone's a puppet politician, right? So it's very unfortunate that the atrocities that are being committed are not being given the time of light. But these things are, 15,000 protesters can and will be executed if we don't do anything. And so it's very unfortunate to see the Western media pick this up. I also wanted to say one other thing. It was reported a couple of days ago that the hijab laws in Iran were going to be lifted, right? Possibly lifted. And somehow this became, like a reform or something, the regime is possibly thinking about lifting the hijab laws and having women not wear hijab. And it's not true, right? We are not compromising on reform so that the regime can stay. It's either like they're staying or they're leaving. That's the thing. There's no like in between. But again, the Western media picked this up and ran with this news. And why did the regime do this, right? The regime is backpedaling. They are backpedaling. Right now, they don't know what to do. The more people they kill, the more people they execute, the more we're going to say their name, the more that we're going to bring awareness to this. So this idea that like they're going to kill all these people, like they can and they will, but the more they do it, the more that this is going to come on to them, and the blowback is going to happen. Recently, I think 2 days ago, the regime came out and it was revealed that they are looking for asylum for the regime, like their families and stuff, in Venezuela. So the regime is like backpedaling, right? This is like she said, like we are in the revolution. 3 months, we're 3 months in, and it's like you don't know what they're capable of, really. No one really knows what the regime is capable of. But I will say that it's the most brutal things that you can think of. Forced confessions, torture, sham trials. All of these things are happening. Mass executions. In Iran, it in the custom of Islam, it is very sacred to know where the body's at for the family, right? These people are sometimes buried somewhere by the regime and never told where they're buried. So their family, it's a thing in Islam where it's very important to know where they're at, and sometimes they don't know where they're at, or they tell them where they're at and they go dig them up, and that's not even the body of the person who died, of their family. And so these things are happening. Like these things are almost like the really sad thing is these things are normalized, right? And living in that environment, it's just it's insane. It's really insane.
It's actually happening to Mohsen Shakari's family right now. So they're refusing to tell his family where his body is currently in this moment. And I want to speak to some of the other things you said. One is that this is, when we're talking about the danger that detained protesters are in and how they can be executed and already are being tortured. This is not even to mention the many protesters that have been killed on the streets. They're being executed on the streets. why are we using these semantics of, oh, they haven't been sentenced yet, oh, like there's a difference between the parliament and the judiciary, when they're already being killed on the streets. They started using heavy weaponry and chemical gases on Kurdish people in the Kurdish province of Iran. And that area has more limited internet. It's made up of a huge ethnic minority. And they started using heavy weaponry on them. And no coverage, minimal. No mainstream media came out and started talking about that. And this was after the whole fact-checking debacle with the 15,000 protesters. They didn't come back and be like, oh, by the way, this is happening. Now that it's happening, why aren't you talking about it? And, there's so many more names I can give you right now that have been killed since, and there's still nothing. And to your point about reform versus a downfall of the regime, it's insane to me that politicians, including top politicians in the U.S., are still even using the word reform as a possibility. It's like talking about a serial killer and being like, oh, he said that he's gonna not kill anymore, or he's gonna only kill some people and not other people, or it's just insane to me that you're talking about a mass murdering terrorist regime as if it's possible for them to suddenly change. And even if they're willing to suddenly change, there's 43 years of murder and harm that they've committed. Really, do you want to do business deals with that group? Do you really want to give them money, or do you want to hold them accountable? We have to hold them accountable. There is no other way. And it's insane. And those people should be ashamed that they're willing to do business and still deal with that organization, including as early as a couple of days ago, Secretary Blinken said that they're still want to explore nuclear deal with the regime, even though they're killing children, underage, teenagers, children as young as 2 years old. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I would say that if the nuclear deal happens, that is horrible for Iranians. Them pausing the nuclear deal and not doing it would be really good. But doing business, like she said, doing business with a terrorist, this is doing business with a terrorist organization, pretty much. These people are terrorists. This regime is these are terrorists, and I think the question also now becomes, what's next, right? What can be done next? We had 3 days of closures recently where businesses were closed, bazaars were closed, people stayed home from work. So what is this? A civil disobedience, right? This is things that everyday normal Iranians can do. People like you and me can bring awareness out here, and I think that's super important. Another option is, some people have asked me, well, why haven't the Iranian citizens armed themselves? First thing is that it's illegal to have a gun in Iran, and the only people who have guns, I have a couple cousins who have guns, but they're used for hunting, basically, right? And it's not like everyone has a gun. So one thing would be to arm the citizens, would be one thing. I personally think civil disobedience is a great way, right? It's kind of been proven. We had, Martin Luther King out here. Civil disobedience is huge. I mean, in that time there wasn't the internet to bring things viral, but it at some point though, we also need foreign help, right? One thing that I kind of struggle with, and maybe you guys can help me out here, a little bit with is like I saw the international community like really, really come and help out like Ukraine when stuff was going on in January and February. Um, we saw the United States give weapons, give money. The United States opened up a visa waiver program that allowed Ukrainian citizens, women and children, to come to the United States on a 2-year visa, and you could apply for it, and they were offered it, and I actually took part in that program. Um, I currently have 2 people from Ukraine living next to me in the next room. Um, it was a very easy application, visa waiver program. Where are these programs for Iranians? Where are programs in Germany? Where are programs in France? Where is asylum in England? Right? Is it is it is it the color of my skin? Is it my beard? What is it? What exactly is it? Because as I mean, Luke, you've had some experience with Iranians, and like I honestly feel like we're very nice people, very hospitable people. Um, we give the shirt off our own back, right? Uh, I'm kind of confused. I kind of don't know what to think. Why where is the help? Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
I think you make a lot of great points there, Reza. And I think you're probably on it right there. I think there is a lot of racism and prejudice for people in the U.S., UK, Germany, France, all over against anyone they seem or deem as other, other, whether it's your skin color, religion. There's still a huge, huge institutional prejudice, and that sort of reverberates each of those societies that we mentioned. And it's horrible. It's an atrocity to the people. It's atrocity to humanity. And I'm appalled by that. I'm just, I don't know. I don't know how to make, how you make someone care, right? Is by knowing the story, is by knowing the people, like you mentioned, Reza, knowing you and showing humanity, their humanity. I don't know why.
I mean, Middle Eastern pain has been normalized in the West. When people hear about something happening in the Middle East, it's just like, oh, well, it's the Middle East. What do you expect? There's this idea that like violence is just like how it is over there. And so because of that, we get dehumanized. And I think the other part of it is that the West has benefited from the destabilization of the Middle East. And maybe they don't want the Middle East to be stabilized, to have its own democracies, to be able to actually thrive. That's a very likely possibility. I mean, you can see just in the way that the West talks about Iran and what's happening, you can see that they're resisting wanting to help. They're resisting even acknowledging that this is a revolution, that the people want democracy. They still talk about reform. So there's something there. There's something there that's not about human rights. It's about selfish business, I don't know, capitalistic, something to do with that.
You're absolutely
and
right.
We've seen it in history, and it's probably still a thing,
I think you're hitting on a really good point where the destabilization, right? It's like it almost benefits the West to have like a Iran in turmoil, you know. It gives reason for war, it gives reason for weapons, right? Like, hey, we need on the US, like, they basically can go and say, hey, we need to get more weapons. We need to, why? Oh, because there's this threat of the Middle East, there's this threat of Iran. So we need more weapons, right? We need to spend more money, taxpayer money, to get more weapons and to be safe. We got to be safe. I mean, Iran. I mean, I'm sorry. I almost feel like the United States is already in the Middle East as Israel is like a proxy, you know. And honestly, I do agree with that. I think that having a stable Iran is what the United States government actually would want. You know, it's reason for them to fund wars, to fund weapons. Having an Iran that's open and free almost would be like oh shit, like now we can't like get the weapons we want or get you know, it's that's honestly how I feel.
Or coerce them into cheap oil, right? Because right
Right.
now they can just sanction Iran on and put so much pressure on them that they can then like control sort of how they can engage with Iran. But if Iran is suddenly free and independent, oh shit, are we going to get cheap oil anymore? Like we'll be able to have, you know, like pressure Iran in the ways that we want? No, because once it's a democracy, like it's gonna look bad to coerce a democracy into something like that. It's not gonna work anymore.
and 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 like, I'm not even sure if people are aware of this. Like, people think that Iran's oil ends up not, you know, it's there's an embargo, trade embargo, Iran and the United States and a lot of other countries, but Iran's oil still comes to these countries because it's sold to like another country, and that country sells it back to America or sells it back to somewhere else. And so when it goes to more hands, the oil is first sold really cheap as it goes to the next hand, right? In trade, like when you buy something, the first party that sells it, you sell it cheap. The second party sells it higher, and so Iran's oil, their gross domestic product, is being sold very very cheaply. It also is interesting, personally, like as the world is moving to more green energy, right? Solar, green energy. What's going to happen with countries that are dependent on oil, right? This is an interesting thing. I personally know, you know, like Saudi Arabia right now is kind of also a proxy for the United States. Um, a lot of stuff that happened recently. We had Saudi Arabia had a journalist that was killed. It was basically handed down from their leader. The United States knows this. This was during the Trump administration. Basically, they like just pushed it under the carpet, right? Nothing happened. This has got to stop. This is like, we need to like bring awareness. This is just insane, you know. Like, I don't personally buy into conspiracy theories and stuff, but this is like stuff that's like fact, like you could see it. It's just, this is just insane. And it's kind of crazy to think how much of the world and how much of the media is actually controlled, right? By this narrative that is being pushed. So I'm sure, like, if you want, do you want to speak on that, Laura, too? It's just insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can see that there's a lot of selfish interests, and and then these narratives are created around those selfish interests and fed to the people, and then it's hard to really get access to the truth. And in this case, you know, The truth being that the Islamic Republic is a terrorist organization, it's a dictatorship, and that the people want democracy, and they're fighting and really putting their lives on the line every day to reach that. And so I think like what I would like to talk about right now, if everyone's okay with it, is like, I'm sure your listeners are wondering, like, what can I do? How can I help? Like, well, how can we all work together to try to actually support Iranians? And so, like, if we can focus on that, I have a whole list of stuff that I can say.
That'd be great.
Of stuff that we could do, that we could say. Okay, cool. So the number one thing, as Reza said, say their names, save their lives. That is truly one of the most important things that we must do, is that social media, global public awareness. We have to keep doing that. We have to keep sharing the voices of Iranians. We have to keep sharing the videos that are coming out of the resistance, and stop falling for the regime's PR stunts. We cannot trust a word they say. So let's not waste time spreading what they say. Like the whole morality police debacle that was like completely false. They used that as an opportunity to take attention away from the nationwide strikes that were happening, from the detained protesters they were torturing, from the UN meeting that's about to happen on December 14th, about them being kicked off of the Commission for the Status of Women. So they're just trying to create distractions. So sometimes they say things that sounds hopeful or sounds good or sounds potentially like outrageous in some way that makes them look good. And they then use that to then do their atrocities hidden. So yeah, number one, keep talking about it. Don't fall for that BS. Call out the BS if you see it. The other stuff I want to speak to are about like what we should demand our governments to do. One, we should demand our governments to cease all negotiations with the Islamic Republic regime. It should not be okay to do any negotiations with them. We should demand our governments to recognize the Islamic Republic regime and any affiliates as the terrorist organization. I mean, I can't believe that the US still hasn't even said that. We have to make sure that all countries block the Islamic Republic representatives from being in their countries. They shouldn't be allowed to come into our countries. It's crazy that right now Iranians, innocent civilians, they aren't allowed to come visit the US. But guess what? 2 regime affiliates just visited the US last month for a UN meeting. And they were chill. They got to hang out at the Hilton in NYC. Nothing. They didn't do anything. They let them in. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. And then, we have all these economic sanctions that are targeted towards the regime, where it hurts. And those haven't really been properly enforced. So number one, we need to enforce the sanctions we already have. Number two, we need to create new targeted sanctions against the regimes, their affiliates, and their families, who, by the way, are living freely in the Western world. Their families are enjoying democracy while they're oppressing the people. Because ultimately, this isn't about religion or morality for them. This is just the facade they're using. So we need to freeze their assets. We need to freeze the assets they have in the Western worlds, right? Those are the things that we need to demand our governments to do. Anything to add, Reza?
Yeah, I mean, the regime has hijacked the religion of Islam and used it and given it a bad light. I mean, this is not Islam. This is like torture. This is oppression, right? In terms of I'll just go backwards. I do know that Canada has paused the accounts of certain or people. Basically, what she's saying is true. There's a lot of people from the regimes whose families are in Australia, are in America, are in Canada, are in France, are in Europe. And Canada was like one of the only nations that I know of and that has paused the bank accounts, frozen the bank accounts, the assets of people from the regime, family members of the regime. Kudos to Canada for doing that. But why did it take like so long, right? Like this has been going on for like 43 years. Why all of it? Oh, just because of Massa Amini, just because of the political protests that are going on now, the pressure is on these governments, right? And how they respond, honestly, is it makes me think. Like, I would actually think of like not going to places in the future for my own travel that would support the regime, right? Like it's almost like shocking to me that it took this event for them to do this. This has been going on for 43. Go ahead.
I'll tell you why. Because this is the first time Iranians are united and have come together and are demanding and pressuring. We've been going at it for almost 3 months. Without public pressure, they wouldn't have done shit. None of these. Right now, the UN mechanism of accountability that was passed I'm losing track of the dates now because I've just been so deep into this, but like a couple last week, was it last week? But the UN just, the countries within it had this emergency meeting on Iran, and they voted to pass an accountability mechanism that would start investigating what the Islamic Republic is doing, the human rights atrocities, and so that they can eventually hold them accountable. So that wouldn't have happened without the Iranian diaspora community coming together and starting to demand them to take action. So, I mean, this really highlights that public pressure works. That us continuing to talk about this and keep pointing their faces in the information, like, actually does matter. And we need to keep doing that. Yeah, and I invite your listeners to do that too. I invite you guys, everyone. You don't have to be Iranian to support this movement, because ultimately this is about women's rights and humans' rights everywhere.
Yeah, I like, absolutely, like the pressure needs to like be put on, and like as you said, like it's been 3 months, and like we're not going to stop. Like this is not stopping. Like we're going to keep making aware. It's gotten to the point where my American friends are starting to contact me and saying, "Hey, what can I do to help?" And the best thing you can do to help is to raise awareness, is to bring this into your life and to actually like support it. And that's really how you can do it. We need to keep the pressure on. And it's like you said, like where these international, these governments haven't done anything, but now they are, right? Because the pressure's on them. And so like, we have to hold them accountable. Posting on your stories. I mean, I think Delara does a great job. I mean, I watch her post like every day. She does a great job of pulling from all these sources and putting them on her stories. I highly recommend like your followers, like follow her page. Maybe you can put a link into the podcast later on, if that's okay with you, Delara.
Yes, please.
Because the stuff that she posts, like it's informative to me even, and I like I'm sometimes shocked at what is going on. I have people on the ground floor in Iran. I talk to them daily using WhatsApp and Instagram are like the two things that people use like on a daily basis. Now they're also like, for information to get out, it's a little bit harder sometimes with VPN, but it still gets out. Sometimes it's slow. But yeah, to having the pressure put on, not only like these governments, but also like our own government, right? Like there's a huge Iranian community in Chicago, in the Bay Area, in Los Angeles, right? There's a second of Los Angeles called Tehrangeles, right? That's how big the Iranian community is. And one thing about the Iranian community, it really doesn't matter if you know each other. When you find an Iranian, when you go outside and you see an Iranian person, there's this connection. Like there's this like same wavelength kind of connection. Oh, شما ایرانی هستی؟ آره منم ایرانی. You know, it's like it's this really it's this beautiful harmony. And Iranians will do anything for other Iranians, right? You come into someone's house and they will just keep feeding you food. And you are full. You're full, but they will keep bringing you drinks and food. And so it's a beautiful culture. It's a really beautiful culture. And I think those people who have been around Iranians really feel for them. Maybe some people haven't, right? And so it is really important to keep the awareness, keep it going, and also keep posting. For your like followers and who maybe are not aware of the situation, just doing a little bit of homework would be a lot, I think, you know. And we're as someone that just came from Iran, I'm actually going back. I'm going back to Iran in April, right? So for me, like leaving Iran, I had a really tough experience this time when I left. I left and flew out to Istanbul airport. And you know, when I was in the airport, I went to this VIP lounge, and I was in the lounge. There was food, there was as much as you want, alcohol, food, internet. And I was in the lounge and I felt guilty, you know. I felt horrible being in that lounge because why like why can't my brothers and sisters, why can't my cousins, why can't my friends come to that lounge and hang out, right? Sure, they can travel to there's only this is a crazy thing. There's only 10 countries that Iranians can go to. Like the Islamic Republic of Iran passport only allows passage to 10 countries visa free. This is like why are the Iranian people persecuted for the atrocities of the regime, right? And Iranians can't even travel. If you really think about it, based on the inflation and everything, there's no money. And so when I was in that lounge, I felt horrible to be there, you know? And so when I was there, I told myself, I'm going back, you know, I'm going back to help these people out. So I'm heading back out to Iran. What can be done now? You know, I personally do think civil disobedience in Iran is a great way to hit the regime. I think on Delara's stories, I saw some videos or some images that like the regime was like trying to open up the stores, like trying to tell people like, hey, come and open up your store, your bazaar. And so like the pressure we have to like keep it on, like keep it going, you know. It's of vital importance.
Yeah. Strikes have been one of the powerful tools that was used in the previous, 1979 revolution. And that's one of the things that the regime really doesn't want is for them to lose their economic power. And so, these nationwide protests that have been, happening in Iran, including the strikes specifically, especially strikes from oil workers or factory workers, those are critical. So if we can get resources to the people somehow so that they don't have to work and they can strike those huge factories, that will hit them hard. And that needs to keep going.
I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned through history, whether it was the 1988 massacre you talked about and the political prisoners and the dangers they face today, and learning from that history, I think, is very critical to moving forward in the right way. Are there other lessons from the revolution that you think are relevant to now and this current revolution?
I mean, I think that one thing that I would say is was that the green, is that right? The green movement that happened in 2009? 2009, right? With Musavi. I think one of the reasons that, I mean, they call it the Twitter revolution, because a lot of countries, I think Libya was one of them under Gaddafi, that was overthrown, right? And Gaddafi's regime in Libya. One thing I will say, like, history has a way of repeating itself, right? And I feel like, I personally feel like why the 09 green movement, why it was bolted up eventually, was because they were able to like get Musavi and like put him in like into house arrest. I think he's currently still under house arrest to this day. But one thing I'll say is like the face of this revolution is all of us, right? And so that's one thing that I think is good. A lot of times, like when I was in Iran this last time, they said, oh, like I was, I go into the taxi, they're called, the Ubers are called snaps. I go into the snaps and I'd always talk to the drivers when I was there. And they, a lot of times the drivers were a lot older, around 60, 50, late 50s, 60s. And some of their concerns was like, oh, this revolution is unorganized. They would say, oh, there's no face of this revolution, right? But what I don't think people understand is like, if there was a face of this revolution, if there was one person, that person would be executed. That person would be detained. You would not hear from that person. And I think like that was the lesson with like Musavi in like 09, was that they were able to like throttle him, right? They were able to like put him into house arrest, and like slowly like people like forgot about it. But this time like they're not able to do that because really like you can't kill Masa Amini again. But I wouldn't say she's like the face of the revolution, because she's literally she's like every Iranian woman. She represents every Iranian woman. And like going forward, that's some of the lessons like from prior times of history that I've seen. I would just say like, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. As the state of affairs, as the economics gets worse and worse in Iran. When I was in Iran, $1 was equal to 30 toman. I was in Iran for 3 weeks. I arrived, I think it was like late September, and I left by like October, like late October, something like that. By the time I left, when I arrived, $1 was 30 toman. By the time I left, $1 was 37 toman, right? And this is going to
37,000.
37,000. There's so many zeros there. Yep. I just cut it short to say 37. But
I just want to highlight just the difference, like
there's a lot of zeros. Yeah.
Wow.
It's going to get worse. It's going to go to 45,000 pretty soon. And it will go into 55,000. So their money is gradually going down. Okay. And if you don't buy land, or if you don't buy a car, a vehicle, pretty much the money that you have in your bank is going to be way less. So already you're challenged with like having money in the first place and saving up. Now, if you saved up and you put your money in the bank, well, now your money's depreciating at an interest rate. I mean, at a inflation rate that's insane. So as this like gets worse and worse, I think the like regime is also like backpedaling and trying to like figure out ways that it could possibly like reforms. Like they're trying to do these, like as she said, like they're trying to do these. Why would they even try to do these reforms, right? Like they would never do these reforms unless things are really hitting the fan, right? And so like the pressure that we're putting on, the social pressure that we're putting on, it needs to continue. And like that's like a huge thing that like we are asking for your help. Like, and we need your help. Like we really do need your help, everyone's help, like around the world for this. Cannot, and in the year of 2023, like we cannot let genocide and ethnic cleansing happen before our eyes. I mean, it's I understand it's happened in history at those times, like the internet wasn't even around, and it was stopped, right? Now you cannot lie to the people. You cannot lie to people these days. It's around, like people got to do something. We are asking for your help. We need your help.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, it's not that, I think because most of the Iranians who had, before the 1979 revolution, there was a lot of freedom. Like women were dressed however they wanted, they were educated, and those people who lived that life are still alive today. My grandparents are still alive today. My mom, my dad, and a lot of my family. So I don't even think that they necessarily ever really bought the bullshit of the Islamic Republic. But it's just that now with social media, we have the proof because we can spread the news very quickly and we can maintain that awareness both within our own communities and outside of our own communities. And I think that at this point, we know that this dictatorship is going to fall. And the question really is, how many people are we going to let them kill before we help Iranians? Because this is what's happening. We cannot wait for official statements from the Islamic Republic because they're never going to make those official statements. They're never going to give the outside world warnings about what they're doing. So we cannot wait. We should, this is where the history comes in. We should understand the Islamic Republic system well enough by now to know that they are going to brutalize and they are already brutalizing. So, the question that I want to ask, the West is like, are you just going to watch and wait, or are you going to actually take action?
Yeah. And that's why like Luke, when you reached out to me to like do this podcast, I was like really happy and thankful that like you would do it. Because I mean, just you doing that, you providing that platform is huge. Like imagine if so many creative producers just as yourself did that, right? In every city that they were in to get the word out, like that would be amazing, right? And so it's like it's a communal global effort that we really need. I also wanted to say like one thing I think that maybe we didn't talk about, and if it's okay with you guys, like I wanted to talk about like a couple of the women's rights in Iran, and the lack of women's rights in Iran. Like one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is like for Iranian women to like leave the country, like even just to go to like travel, they need to get like permission from their like husbands, permission from their like fathers to travel. Like this is like what is that? Like what what? Right? Like they have to have written permission to leave the country, to go away for just like a couple of days and then come back. I also wanted to bring this example up. I'm not sure if like you guys are aware, but like in Iran, like in an inheritance situation, right? Like a family, like one, let's say like one male, like myself, and I had like two sisters, right? In the inheritance, the way that it works, let's say the money is divided up, the land is divided up, I would get more money. Why? Because I'm male. I would get 2 times as much as my sisters. This is like written in in the law, right? And I think like one thing, a lot of people might say like, oh, that's Islam. That's the way that Islam culture is. I think like it's a little bit of both. I women's rights in Iran are like really, really limited. I almost feel like, and it's something that in this day and age, I think we need to like address, and that needs to like completely change. Even for the next government that comes in, it's something that it's sexist, right? This is very sexist, and it's a thing that's in the Middle East as well. I've traveled to some Middle Eastern countries myself, and I've seen it myself. And I mean, Delara, maybe you can speak a little bit about this. Living in Iran for about 9 years, I'm sure you saw some stuff and can speak to about.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of women's rights, I mean, women can't even go into a football stadium to watch a game. They can't file for divorce. The husband has to give permission. If there is divorce, the kids go to the man. The woman has no rights to her own kids. If even if the husband, let's say the husband is dead, the kids then go to the husband's father or brother or uncle. It's still that the mother doesn't have rights to her own kids. I mean, these are just like little examples of women can't wear what they want. Obviously, we all know that. Women's testimony is worth half that of a man's. So if she witnesses something and she goes to court, her voice doesn't matter. What she sees doesn't matter. Rape against women is not something that men aren't held accountable to. Like a husband can rape her wife or his wife, sorry, and he can get away with it because it's legal under that system. Women as young as I think I don't remember the exact number at this point, but at one point it was as young as 9 years old can be married off. There's some like horrifying laws under the Islamic rule. Some of them being that a woman who is a virgin can't be executed. So what they do is they do these like marriages to marry the or detained woman to one of the guards. He rapes her, and then they execute her. It's like I cannot believe. No one can believe that, but it's real. It's a reality. They've done it in history. I don't know if they're still doing it. I wouldn't be surprised. And actually,
they are still doing it. They are still doing it.
Yeah, and speaking of rape, detained. This actually has been. Iranians knew this already. We all kind of know this, but it has been confirmed by a CNN investigation, a special report that they released a couple of weeks ago, that when they detain protesters, they target the beautiful ones, the ones that they're attracted to, both men and women, and they rape them as a form of torture. And actually, I want to name someone, Armita Abbasi. She is a young 20-year-old who was detained, kidnapped basically by the Islamic regime forces. And her whereabouts were not even told to her family. Her family didn't know where she was for over a week. She was rushed to a hospital in the city of Karaj, and the medical staff there found that she was severely bleeding internally from rape. And that was the first time that her family heard about where she was. So as they rushed to the hospital, the Islamic regime forces kidnapped her half-conscious body, and she hasn't been seen since. We still don't know where she is. We don't know if she's alive. We don't know like how we don't know anything. We don't know where she is. Her family doesn't know where she is. So hashtag Armita Abbasi, say her name, because this is the only way we might be able to save her life.
And I think there's so many things that I've also heard about people who were abducted by the regime, women, and raped, right? And then they were let go. And what has happened is the guilt of the rape, of being raped, has eventually caused these women to go in and commit suicide, right? So really fucking with their head, like seriously fucking with their head. And this has happened a couple times that I've heard about in the last 3 months with a couple young women. And like, I mean, I saw your reaction, Luke, as Delara is talking about some of this stuff. Your eyes are popping open, right? Like it's almost like you can't even, like, is this really happening? And it is, and that's the sad thing. The sad thing is it's normalized, right? It's common. It's a day-to-day thing. We couldn't have another guest on here today because she was fearful of being on this podcast today, fearful for her life, fearful for her family's lives, right? The regime has created, it's brainwashed people into thinking, and it is true though, like when I go to Iran and the way that I dress, which is a lot of leggings and a lot of bright colors, I get a lot of stuff from my family members who say, hey, like, can you maybe not wear that? Can you not wear this, or you cannot wear that? And I always, I know where they're coming from. They're coming from the bottom of their heart. They don't want me to get in trouble there, right? And a lot of them in Iran, the stuff that they post on Instagram or the stuff that they show, it's all kind of like, we have a group chat and they'll talk about a lot of the stuff. We'll talk about a lot of the stuff. But when it goes to like posting, like they'll like selectively post a couple things, right? But they won't like go like really into it. And that's fear, right? That is fear that the regime will come and get them. And like, that's, and it's true
because they will, and they do.
And they will, and they do, and that's why it's like, I feel like it's like my responsibility. I'm getting emotional. I feel like it's my responsibility to like bring their voices out and talk about that, right?
Well, you've done that, Reza. I mean, you've been doing that, and that's how I've been brought more into this, right? It's through your expression, through speaking for them. It breaks my heart what is going on. I want to have hope be in the equation as well. What is your hope for Iran?
We need to keep posting. We need to keep the awareness going. One of the slogans for this revolution is Zan Zendegi Azadi, right? Woman, life, freedom. Please, like, hashtag it, hashtag say their name, hashtag Masami, hashtag Boshin Shakari in every post. Because if we don't say their name, the fear, like it's the regime will just the regime is very good. It's for putting pressure, for controlling people. It's done it for 43 years. It's an expert in knowing how to control the masses, right? But let's turn the tables on them. Like, I am hopeful. Like, as Delara was saying, like, it's not a matter of when the revolution is happening. It's happening, and this regime will fall.
Yeah, I will tell you, like, this is the most hopeful I've felt it since I've been alive in regards to Iran and its potential. Because this feels different. This time we are unified in a way that, globally, we're unified in a way that I hadn't seen before. And that's why I'm posting every day. That's why I'm not going to stop, because I know that this is it. This is it. Like, we have to win, because if we don't, the consequences for the people of Iran are going to be severe. And I really do believe that we can win. And I mean, the world that I'm envisioning is that one day we're going to go and party in Iran, all of us together. We're going to go and dance in the street, which is illegal right now to do. But we're going to do it. And, like, my message to the people of Iran is that I'm with you, and I'm going to support you, and I'm going to try my best to be your voice. And I hope everyone else does too. And as long as you keep going, I will keep going. I will not stop. And I feel like it's my responsibility as someone who is privileged and outside of Iran to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly like feel that, and agree with that. Like, the place that I'm at in my life, like, it's like my duty, it's like, there's no other way. Like, I don't think we could, honestly, I don't think we could live with ourselves with just by standing by and doing nothing.
Well, I want to thank you both for being on this podcast. I want to make sure that we have covered everything that you feel like we need to say today. Is there anything else either of you would like to add?
I feel like I have like endless, I could like talk about this forever.
Yeah.
There's just like so many things I want to say, but like, there's limited time. And I do want to quickly highlight that, I think we should start saying Gina Mahsa Amini, because Gina is her Kurdish name. And the Islamic Republic has historically, and still to this day, has basically been committing ethnic cleansing and major, violent oppression of ethnic minorities in Iran, including even making it illegal for Gina's family to use Gina as her legal name. So that's why Mahsa is her legal name, but really her real name is Gina. And so, like, I think it is important for us to acknowledge and use that name and celebrate that name and that Kurdish identity and culture, especially given that our Kurdish brothers and sisters are some of the bravest and have been some of the boldest protesters. They've gone out into the street in the face of heavy weaponry, weapons of war, because the Islamic regime thinks that they can get away with targeting those populations more than they can get away with targeting people in Tehran, for example, which is the capital and it has, more of the less ethnic minority groups there. So, yeah, I do want to highlight that.
Yeah, I would say that the Kurdish communities have like even done more than like people. I mean, it's been like she said, like facing heavy artillery, right? And still going and protesting and doing things. And people in Tehran, the capital city, not to say like they haven't, of course not. I mean, I will say one thing. I was recently like, I go on a lot of runs, and I have videos if you guys want to see it. But I was in I was staying at one of my cousin's houses, and I go like on a lot of runs, like I don't know, 6 kilometers, 10 kilometers, and so I went to what is Maidun Azadi. So this is it's basically called so Maidun is roundabout, right? It's like you see a lot of roundabouts in Europe and the Middle East, and this roundabout is called the Freedom Roundabout, right? But it's not it's ironic that the name is called Freedom Roundabout, where there's no freedom, right? And so when I was there, it was right after it was during these protests, and there is a there is there is a group in Iran, and they're called the Basiji. And the Basiji are basically the worst of the Iranian forces that are allowed to do pretty much anything that they want. And they are ordered in by the supreme leader. And they are like, because you have soldiers, you have regular soldiers, and then you have like basically like the what do you call it,
the ROTC.
The ROTC, and then you have like Basiji. And like when I was running on my run, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to Maidun Azadi. Now where the Maidun Azadi is, there's a university like not too far away. It's called University of Sharif. It's a very popular university. You'll see a lot of protests that happen. Now, there was a protest I had no idea this was going on. There was a major protest that was going on about like 1 or 2 kilometers away from where my run was. So when I went into the roundabout, I have video. There are Basiji officers not in the roundabout, but ready to pounce, literally ready to pounce on protesters who are at the Meiduna, who are at the roundabout. And so and these are people with like heavy artillery, like ARs, and the fear, like people like you don't have weapons, you don't have anything, and you're going to a protest, or you're going into a situation where you might not be coming back, right? You might not be coming back home to your mom and dad, or your sister, or your brother. Honestly, this is like bravery. I don't think you can get braver than this. These protesters are the most brave people ever. They're willing, there's something I always say, Miguel, اگه واقعا آزادی میخوای باید حاضر باشی برای آزادی you have to be ready to die for your freedom. And literally these people are like willing to die for the freedom of not only themselves but the freedom of Iran, right? And so that is like, when I see that these protesters are going out there and risking their lives just to protest, right? Like that is like, we have protests here that happen in the United States, right? And people like go home, like after the protest is done, like they go home. In Iran, you go into the ground after you protest, right? If they catch you. Like this is like a huge discrepancy that I think like I would like to like highlight and make people aware about. It's just insane. It's literally insane. And when I was on that run and I saw that, I grabbed some video of the Basiji, and they were out there, and just a kilometer away, 2 kilometers away, like she was saying, they're killing people. There's no like, oh, here's this official execution that we're taking. No, it's like, and we have footage of this. Like we have footage we could show. Just truly insane. Luke, did you have any questions yourself that maybe you wanted to ask?
Who is the number one enemy of the regime, or the biggest threat to topple the regime?
It's hard to answer that because there is, like Reza said, there isn't a single person. I mean, they have people that they blame, right? they blame Masih Alinejad. She is this really powerful woman activist who is based in the United States. She was exiled from Iran. She had to escape. Who has been speaking about the brutality of the regime for years. She helped start this movement called the Silent Revolution, or I forgot exactly the term, but it's basically where women take off their headscarves and film it and then post it online without showing their face as part of their like quiet revolution of like an anti-regime move. And this was started many years ago. So she's been a target of theirs for a long time. And actually there has been 2 attempted assassinations on her, kidnapping and assassination in New York City. So the regime has reach. The regime, it has reach everywhere. It has reach in the UK, it has reach in Canada, it has reach in the US. And they are willing to pay people to do their biddings for them as well. And so really, like, anyone who speaks up against them is a major target. Even Reza going out there in the Maidun of Azadi and filming the Basiji, he could have been killed for doing that. That itself is a risk. So the regime takes anyone who speaks up against them extremely seriously, and they will target anyone who does so, and particularly people who have large platforms, whether inside or outside of Iran. I mean, Hossein Ronaqi, one of the most beautiful, amazing activists in Iran, who refused to leave Iran. He repeatedly spoke up against the regime and said that he's not going to leave, that he's willing to face the consequences of what he's saying for the freedom that he is hoping to bring for Iranians. And he had been severely tortured in prison for the past couple of months. And through all of us continuously saying his name, he's finally been released on bail, and he had to get, a lot of medical attention. He only has one functioning kidney because the other one he lost because of the torture he had experienced previously in a previous round of imprisonment. So this guy is just amazing. But he's an example of someone that the regime sees as an enemy.
I would also say, like,
too much. Can we also talk about too much?
And I was also going to say about Shervin Hajipour, the artist with the song Baro, right? And this song is like is like world renowned, and Shervin Hajipour was like basically like detained, but there was people played this song so much so. Like the Iranian government, if the regime actually killed him, it would have just shat, like it would have just been so big, right? So what they did was they released him, right? Because if they had done anything, the song would have just kept going and going and going.
Well, he's on house arrest, so he's not like
house arrest, free, right? He's not like free. No one is really free.
No one is free.
So this was an artist. This was the wow.
Yeah.
This is a musician, and he made a song.
He created the revolution song. Basically, this is the song of our revolution.
And I'll send you the link.
If anybody wants to hear this, what can you say the name and the name of the artist again? Sorry.
Let me send it.
Yeah, it's on here. Spotify, so you can just.
Luke, can you pull that up right now from the chat box?
And while you're pulling that up.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are 2 other artists I want to highlight whose lives are in danger right now. Tumaj Salehi. He's a rapper and also like one of the biggest voices, anti-regime voices. All of his songs are anti-regime, and he is currently being tortured. And he was actually tortured into a forced confession recently. So that's how horribly, I mean, like, we don't even know how badly they've tortured him. But he is at risk of execution. He was charged with moharebe, which is, again, waging war against God, which is punishable by death. And also Salman Yasin, a Kurdish rapper, who has also been charged with the same so-called crime, and is at risk, a high risk of execution as well. And his mom had actually released a video yesterday begging the world to please do something, please help, please say his name. So those are all artists that I would love to bring to attention and have people use hashtags of their names on any post. It doesn't even have to be a post about them, but just keep using those hashtags.
Is this the song?
Yes.
So what is? Can you
Yeah,
what they're saying here?
I just put in the lyrics in the chat box. I can translate it to English, but I have no voice. So it says, for dancing in the alleys, for the fear when kissing, for my sister, your sister, our sisters, for changing rested minds, for the shame of poverty, for the regret of living an ordinary life, for the dumpster diving, children and their wishes, for the dictatorial economy, for the polluted air, for Balias and its worn out trees, for Pirus and the possibility of its extinction, for the innocent banned stray dogs, for the unstoppable tears, for the scene of repeating this moment, for the smiling faces, for students and their future, for this forced heaven, for the imprisoned elite students, for the Afghan kids, for all these that are beyond repetition, for all these meaningless slogans, for the collapse of the fake buildings, for the feeling of peace, for the sun after these long nights, for anxiety and sleeping pills, for men, homeland, prosperity, for the girl who wished to be a boy, for freedom, life, freedom, for freedom, for freedom.
For women, life, freedom, yeah. So this song was created from Twitter posts of protesters. So each line is from a tweet that an Iranian protester shared about why they are protesting. And then Shervin Hajipur, being the talented musician he made it into this song that has touched so many hearts across the globe. And we're hoping that he will win a Grammy for it.
And I just put into that chat box Turaj Salehi, and there, so maybe you can also look that up later. But this, I mean, one thing that I will say about the Barria's battle song is, like, when I was in Iran, like, it didn't matter where I went, like whether it was a taxi, whether it was in someone's house, whether it was on the street, you could hear this song. And it was like, what she's talking about is like a united Iran. Like, to be honest, like, this is the first time, like when you say hopeful, like, I've never felt this hopeful before. Because, like, the song was being blasted everywhere. And it was like we were all like, there was this unison, right? And it was something beautiful to experience in Iran, right? Like, it's one thing for like everyone to play it out here, but to have it, to be there and to have everyone play this song, and at the same time, it was an amazing, amazing feeling. And like, yeah, like, I am very hopeful. This is the most hopeful I've ever been.
Yeah, I think every Iranian has cried to this song. Yeah. Definitely. And it's not because we like onions.
It's powerful, and moving. Very much so. And the voice of the people, I love that. It was taken from tweets, literally giving the voice, wow. That's pretty incredible. I'm going to put this on my playlist.
Please do.
And please
Play
share.
it. Play it over and over.
Play it.
This was my most played song on Spotify this year. You know, they did the stats at the end. Spotify does that.
Wow.
I was like working somewhere, and like the song I think is like 2.5 minutes long. And so like I found this like YouTube thing. I was at work, and so it was just a loop. And for like about like 45 minutes or an hour, it's just like listening to the same thing, just looping over. And not tired at all. And you know, because this is for Iran. This is for my brothers and sisters, and the song speaks to us, and it's beautiful, you know. And yeah, like I'm really hoping this next time I go to Iran, I don't know what's going to happen in March and April, but yeah, like I'm very much going back, and like I'm excited, and whatever I can do between now and then I'll do, and whatever I can do there I'll do. One thing I'll say is, personally for me, when I was there, even though that there was this threat of like, and I don't know if it's because I was raised in the West or something, but like expression, like the way that I dress or something, it actually it's really important to me. And so like when I was there, I actually refused to change who I was. And I think that's also a little bit because like I'm a male, so like I'm coming from like already a place of privilege, right? That I could wear my leggings, that I could wear my Space Cat pizza outfits and stuff like that. All I got was like looks of like, oh my, that he might be kind of weird or something. But I think it's because I was just male, right? And so like that's like one of the things is like I'm always going to go there and I'm going to be me. But also like I'm coming from such a place of privilege sometimes that like I'm not understanding all the ramifications. Like if I was female, like I could not do that, and I know I can't do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, no, I just want to say, even as a man, that could be dangerous. I mean, I think you just touched on the topic that because we grew up, you know, partially in the West, we might not even truly realize the ramifications of our choices. So like, for example, when I went to Iran some years ago, my mom was really scared of me going anywhere. Like she was like, don't go to parties, because, you know, it's illegal to party, by the way. It's illegal to have men and unmarried men and women mixed together in any circumstance, basically, including even walking down the street together. And so it's extremely risky to even to go to a party. And I was young and I was like, I want to go to a party. This is boring. Like, what am I going to do? Like, just like sit at home while I'm in Iran? Like, and, you know, my mom was really scared and she didn't want me to. And eventually, like, she let me go to one. That was like, you know, with that, my mom's cousin took me, you know, I went with him. But it's because like, I don't think I fully understood the fear, because I hadn't experienced that violence. You know, I had been away from Iran for long enough that I'd forgotten the fear. And I still felt fearful when I saw the morality police, like, you know, because they're everywhere. So like when I would see them, there was definitely like, you know, some anxiety that would show up, and I'd be like, okay, am I like covered up enough? And like, do I seem normal? Like, but yeah, I mean, I think I want to tell you, Reza, be careful. It's not worth dying.
I would second that.
And it's extremely brave of you that you're even going back during this time, because it is a very unstable time. And there have been cases where Americans have been held hostage, even, you know, recently, because the regime is trying to use those as leverage. So
I would have to second that, Reza.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that like, one thing I'll say too about like going to Iran, like anytime I tell any Iranian that I tell like, hey, like I'm gonna go to Iran, like hamish میگن, oh, الان وقتش خوب نیست. They say, oh, it's not a good time to go. It's like any time I've ever said, oh, I'm going to Iran, they all always, no matter what before this even it ever happened, they say it's not a good time to go to Iran. So literally, it's like never a good time to go to Iran. Literally, that's what people tell me. But I'll say one experience that happened about, I think I was like 15 or 16 years old. Where my mom's from, it's about 3 hours from Tehran. It's a smaller city. It's like an agricultural city. And I was walking. I know you guys are old enough to remember like they had like these CD Walkmans, like you would put a CD into your CD player and like you could hook up your like headphone into the CD player. And so like I was wearing a bright red Atlanta Falcons jersey. It was like Michael Vick or something like that. And I was walking around in the main street of this agricultural town. There's not a lot of people. I think like 60 to 80,000 people population, something like that. It's a small town. And I was walking with the headphones in my ear. I think I was listening to like Eminem or something like that, or Dr. Dre or whatever. And all of a sudden, like I was apprehended. Like these police officers grabbed my headphones, grabbed me. And all of a sudden, there was like a circle, like I was in the middle of the circle and there was people like watching, all of a sudden, and they took my headphones and I guess I'm glad they didn't take me, but they took my headphones and they took my CD player. And as I was there, my cousin, who was just driving by, saw what was going on, pulled up his car, and he grabbed me and pulled me away. And later on that night, I went home to my grandmother's house, and I told my family, all of us, everyone in this small town like knows like one thing that happens, like everyone knows what happens, right? And so like some of my family members knew some people at the police station, and like the next night, the CD Walkman and the CD player were like back in my hands. But like, that's not like a situation that like would happen to everyone. I consider myself like really, really lucky that it didn't escalate from there. And it also taught me kind of like a lesson, and like, it was kind of hard because it's like, you almost like can't express yourself, right? And like I am someone that loves, like I get energy from the way I dress and stuff like that. And so going there and having that within my mind, it's like I can't really be Reza if I'm not that, if I'm not doing that. And so this lack of like expression, they're like bottling it up. It's really frustrating. And I also feel like I have so much family there that it's almost like impossible for me not to go there. But I hear what you guys are saying, and like it's almost like don't make yourself almost stand out and be a target, and kind of just like blend in with everyone else. But again, that's like, it's also hard because there's certain things that you do, Luke, that makes you you, and there's certain things, Delara, that you do that makes you you, and like taking it away, stripping you of that individuality, stripping you of that is really hard. And yeah, that's just my personally, I just wanted to share that story with you.
Yeah.
Share that story with you guys.
Wow. I will say, Reza, that's, I think you are lucky in that circumstance, that being surrounded, I cannot imagine like how quickly that could have turned the other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will say, when you go, come back and bring those stories, right? Because, that is so valuable. Like your voice and bringing the awareness back here and sharing that's so important. There's people on the front, there's people playing a role within this whole movement, and your ability to storytell and connect with people here, I think, is extremely valuable and much much needed. So come back, Reza. Come back.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be back.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
when I'm in Iran, like I also post a lot when I'm there. This time, unfortunately, because of the like I was saying, the day-to-day like internet services are like really, really bad. So like I would take videos or like try to post them, but they wouldn't post till like hours later, until like midnight when I would get connected. One thing I think we might, I don't know how, and maybe you guys have some information on this, but like if we could like figure out a way to like provide people in Iran like VPN services, there are like VPN services available that you can download in Iran. Like, so I did it like I was in Croatia before I went to Barcelona, Portugal, Spain, Croatia, Turkey, and then I went to Iran. But when I was in Turkey, I downloaded like a couple of VPN services, and I'm really glad I did because by the time I got to Iran, I couldn't download any VPN services. So like I'm not sure how, and this I don't know, but maybe you guys know a little bit better. Like if there was a way that people in the West could like buy VPN services and like have Iranians use them, that would be like really beneficial because that would be allowing like them to get their news out faster, getting them connected to the internet. Now I know there's some other issues, like sometimes like they truly do cut, like just like I said, like a light switch, they will like cut the internet off. I'm not sure, but there is a like recent talk about is it Starlink, the Elon Musk
Satellite internet system.
satellite internet system? If that could be like provided and used, I'm planning to like possibly take a Starlink there this next time. I know they're like illegal to take to I think they will confiscate it if you try to take it in, but I have heard about people getting it into the country. That I think would also be a huge thing. The regime will try to like limit the amount of information that gets out. So I think it's like super vital for us out here if there's something that we could do. So I think I will have to do more research on that. But like a lot of these like VPN services are like $2.99 or $2 a month or something like that. There might be something to think about that we can start.
So there are some organizations that are working on this. There are some activist groups that are also working on this. I can speak to you offline about that.
Sure.
But right now, one of the examples is the Tor project, the Snowflake project. So I haven't done this myself because I don't have good internet where I am right now. But the Tor project, what it tries to provide like internet access to areas that don't have it. And the Snowflake project specifically, I think, has a way where you can share your VPN with other locations that don't have the VPN. So people who are like more technology oriented should definitely explore this as a way, as an option to help people in Iran. And I think there were some issues with Starlink, but I think people have been able to get some devices in there, but I don't know how expansive it has been or how effective it has been. So this is definitely an area that has room for improvement, and it's critical for information access.
That's great.
It's like providing these services or products into Iranian hands, I think is like super important.
I would
a lot of this
hope this can spark some more, like you mentioned, offline conversation that, this can be followed up on and again, continued just pushing forward. So I hope this can help utilize that.
I
Absolutely.
also wanted to share this link. So I have this like Excel sheet I've put together of just like small actions, easy online actions anyone can take to support the people of Iran. So definitely recommend listeners to check that out. There are petitions they can sign that's on there. There are like scripts and phone numbers on there that where they can call like the appropriate congressman. This is some of it is U.S. oriented, but some of it anyone anywhere could do. And there's email scripts that you can use with email addresses you can send it to. So there's lots of different things to explore on there that I recommend those who want to help to check out.
That's a great Excel. I'm taking a look at it right now, and that's actually awesome. Thank you.
This is an amazing resource here.
Yeah, this is great. This is amazing. Yeah.
So we'll have this in the description for anybody listening to, literally take these actionable steps that you can do right now today to help this movement. So Delara, thank you for providing that.
When I was in Iran, I tried to use the snowflake, tried to do the snowflake thing, but it wasn't working. Maybe at that time it was really new though. Like it had just came out. Like I had just heard about it. But I couldn't.
I should put like a little question mark next to it because I haven't verified this part. Most of this is like reliable stuff, but I think with the VPN stuff, I haven't confirmed it myself. So
it could have also been like when they had put that out there, it was literally like fresh, and so maybe they were still working out the kinks of it. Maybe it's gotten better now. I do know, like, just speaking from a personal standpoint, when I was in Iran and like there is no such thing as like here, like we have kind of like unlimited internet. So Luke, you have to actually like buy like internet cards, right? And so after you use like a certain number of gigabytes or something, like you have to go buy internet again. And so like I had to keep doing that because of course, like during social media and Instagram, you were using like a lot of data, right? And one thing I'll say is like at some point, I remember being so frustrated with the internet, like the lack of internet services, and like trying to connect. Like I had like 4 or 5 VPNs that I like try to connect to. At some point, I was just like, dude, like I'm just turning off this phone, right? And so like that is actually like kind of like what the regime wants, right? Like they kind of want you just to be so frustrated to just be like F this, right? And so like there was a couple of days there where I wasn't posting or I wasn't even online, and which was really like for my like followers, like I do a lot of travel stuff around the world, and everywhere I go I'm like constantly posting. And I got there and it was like silent, you know, it was just like there's like nothing. And people started contacting me and they're like, hey, like how are you okay? Like where are you? You know? And it was like I was just frustrated. I was literally just frustrated with the lack of internet services that I just completely like said, okay, I'm not even going to use my phone anymore, right? And so it's what they want playing into their hands almost. This time when I go back, I'm actually going to load up on more than 4 or 5 VPNs. I'll probably go into like 10 or 12. I got some people in Iran that are like pretty like internet savvy. And a lot of times these people have to go to like mobile repair shops or phone stores, and they'll load the programs into their phone because they can't download the programs. The internet is so slow. They'll just load the program and load the VPNs into the phone. So these are some of the challenges that like you face if you're there. And yeah.
I've got to wrap this podcast up. I know there's a lot more that we need to talk about, could talk about. And I appreciate you both coming on and sharing this information and authenticity. Are there any final messages that either of you have that you want to send out to the people listening?
Zan, Zendagi, Azadi. Say their name.
You said it. Zan Zendagi Azadi.
Woman, life, freedom. We won't stop. We won't stop till we get our freedom, till we get our country back. That's the message.
Well, thank you guys for covering this very important topic. Anybody listening out there, share this post. Where can they follow you guys to get more information? Can we give some plugs? We'll have some show notes with links. Where can people just follow you?
So usually I used to not be active at all on social media, barely. But now, because of Iran, really, I think that the best place to find me is on Instagram, from_Delara. So you can find me there.
Yeah, I'm also on Instagram too. The Drip, DADRYP. Follow me, and that's where you can find me. The best place. I wanted to also thank Delara for taking your time to come on this program, and then Luke also for giving us using your platform for this cause, for this movement. So I want to thank both of you guys for your time. I know you guys both take time out of your day to do this, so much appreciated. Much love.
Likewise. Thank you both.
Right back at you.
Okay. All right, guys. Take care.
Okay.
All right.
Signing off.
Okay. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.